So I'm Dallas, and at first, environmental justice was definitely like non-existent to me. I didn't even know what the word meant. I didn't know what the phrase meant. I was very ignorant towards it until 2013. I was diagnosed with DVT, deep vein thrombosis, and PE, pulmonary embolism, in which I had contracted different blood clotting formats from toxins and neurotoxins from being in the air in a polluted atmosphere in Central California. During that time, I was rushed to the emergency room and I found out that I had a blood clot in my leg. Also, this was emergency. They said I should have been dead 2 months ago. So this for me was definitely a wake-up call. Prior to this, I had absolutely no interest in environmental issues. Really realizing that this was more than just a life-threatening situation, but more of a society-threatening situation, more of a cultural-threatening situation. I definitely felt obligated, and I felt my place on this earth was to definitely advocate for this and bring awareness and information to environmental injustice. So part of that here today was helping me realize that, and not only realizing that, but realizing that through my journey and the journey through rehabilitation. Part of discovering how much sustainability, permaculture, agriculture, horticulture, holistic approaches have helped me through my rehabilitation as an individual, socially, biologically, mentally, spiritually, is definitely tangible on many different genres. Going through this process, I've not only ridded myself of many different bad habits, similar to conveying a gardener's daily life of pulling out weeds that no longer serve the purpose of soil or contaminants to the soil that's actually being fertilized. So I like to use those examples because gardening is definitely another format of how we live our life every day. And I feel like the more we get rid of bad weeds and bad habits, the more we can plant sustainable, lively plants and herbs and more things that help us put together a sustainable life. Part of Green Life has not only helped me realize my health issues biologically, my spiritual issues, but also issues in which I can help others rehabilitate themselves back into society. And part of gardening is also indicative on how we treat each other and how we treat ourselves. So the more we treat our garden and our community with kindness and love, the more I think we'll do the same for ourselves and our neighbors as well.
I haven't really given much thought to the environment, maybe because the environment that I grew up in, the poverty that I grew up in, there was some level of acceptance that that's just the way it was. I mean, the thought, I'm sure, had occurred to us that maybe that area should be cleaned up. Maybe we should get rid of some of the toxins that are dumped into our community, but there wasn't enough motivation to just really get involved in that process. We just accepted the environment the way that it was. But when I met Angela and was invited into the Green Life Environmental Leadership, that started me to thinking more about the environment and to really dig deeper into what that meant. Because I've heard people talk about the environment, I heard people talk about climate and all these things, but I didn't have a real connection to that or understanding about that. It was almost like something in a movie. Like, we talk about it, it would be a devastating thing to happen, but is it really going to happen? So there was some doubt, not a lot of concern, and very little knowledge or information about what that really meant until I started participating in the Green Life Environmental Leadership, where we started to go out. And to one of the places I went was to the West Oakland environmental indicators, where I learned about monitoring air quality. And as I listened to the person give details about what that meant, part of me became really worried and concerned, and the other part of me just really made me even more curious as to what exactly did this mean, how real was the impact or potential impact of this, and how could I learn more about it to be able to talk about it to other people. And I guess what really brought it in to me after going through the process of learning how to operate the machine that monitors air quality, and getting fed information about certain areas, like particularly in Richmond where the oil refinery is, the emissions and things of that nature, I started to say, well, that really sounds like that could have an effect on people's lives. And soon after, I think I connected with the visual of seeing people wear masks after the Paradise Fires, I believe, and all the smoke in the air. I mean, I had friends, very close friends of mine, strongly suggesting that I wear masks, but there was something in me that wasn't as concerned about it as everybody else. It was almost like this was like just another scene in a movie where everybody wearing masks, they're panicked, and then next thing you know, everything just goes away. And so after a while, I guess the education part of how that can impact people's lives, whether it was their respiratory system or just in the environment, and how could it have a lasting effect where maybe I didn't see it, I didn't feel it in my time, but maybe my children or my grandchildren could be impacted by it. Then I started to be more concerned and more interested in learning exactly what that meant. And what I discovered is that most of the people in the community that I grew up in had so many other worries or concerns that just to add that on to it, they dismissed it. And I wanted to find a way to be able to articulate that and take that information, that knowledge back to my community so that people could start being more concerned and realize that there is something that we could possibly do to try to safeguard ourselves, to have a better quality of life. And who exactly to bring those grievances or the complaints to. One of the ways I try to explain or to share this information with people is I give them examples. Like, for instance, I say, like, you remember when we were kids and we would stand too close to the RTD bus, or what they were called there, and how all those fumes would hit us in the face, as if even though the bus went away and was maybe 5-10 blocks down, we could still feel as if we had a film on us. And I said, did you ever imagine how that could have possibly affected us? We got all these unexplained conditions in our community. We have asthma, we have these respiratory, and we quick to think maybe it's the mold in the building because that's what we see visually. But the gas and the toxins that we're not able to see, they still it could be potentially as harmful than the ones that we're able to identify. Just to try to give them examples of things that they've already experienced, but to identify what that is, to give it a name and a color.
Before I became conscious and aware of the things that were going on in our community today, I basically was unaware of the effects of what was going on in my community as far as negative air pollution and renewable energy, right? I had always seen, like, when I was growing up, when I was young, I can remember seeing wind turbines out in Contra Costa County, like in Oakley, Brentwood, Antioch area. And I didn't realize what those turbines were doing, that they were actually producing clean energy, right? So since I've been home, I was in prison for 26 years. Since I've been home, I've had an opportunity to have a lot more exposure to green energy and clean and sustainable energy. So one of the ways I've found and I was able to learn more about these things was through Rising Sun Center for Opportunity, where I'm employed as the program manager. And we provide training for low-income individuals with barriers to employment so that they can learn to install solar panels, right? So that was my first major exposure to the solar industry once I came home. And I think that during that time, my consciousness and my awareness rose in these areas, and I started thinking about improving the quality of life for all individuals in our community, right? Not just for some people that could afford solar panels. There are programs available for people that are low-income individuals through different nonprofit organizations. They install solar panels. Sometimes we provide participants to help install solar panels at no cost to individuals. And I just wanted to be a part of something that was greater than myself, something that was bigger than me, something that impacted more people and impacted more lives and impacted people in communities in the urban areas also. So I think that the renewable energy is one of the pathways to improving the conditions of our communities. And I also think that for individuals who participate in these installs, that it gives them a sense of belonging, purpose, and allows them to be a part of something greater than themselves. They're helping save the environment. And I love just being a part of that. And for me, if I haven't said it, that's something that I can hang my hat on, right? And I'm really proud to be a part of that, improving the quality of life for all individuals in the community.
As a young child, I had severe asthma. It was bronchitis that was, I guess, transformed into asthma down the line. But off and on, I had shortness of breathing problems. I didn't really know the source of it. I know my parents at a certain time, my mother and my stepfather did smoke cigarettes in the house when we were children. And, there was other contaminants, like sometimes there was leaks in the roof, and so ain't no telling what other pollutants was in around. But I used to have these asthma attacks. At the age of 12, I actually stopped breathing from a severe asthma attack and was fortunately resuscitated by my mother's friend, who was a nurse at the time. And so my asthma has been a very, very problem part of my life for us, existence, because, when you breathing normally, regularly, you pay it no mind. Like, it's going to be there. You're dependent on that next breath to be there, a good, clean one. You don't cough when you breathe it in, and you don't cough when you blow it out, right? Breathe it out. But once your lungs are seizing up on you, are not taking in no oxygen, there is a thick covering of mucus on top of it because of all the pollutants in the air. That's when you really start, seeing the value of good, clean air, because it's a matter of life and death. And so I experienced that. And then it was a time where I flew coming back home from Sacramento to LAX, and I seen layers of smog in the air. This was in the mid-90s. And so that helped me get a deeper understanding of how long, pollution been in the air, especially in the LA County area. So it's definitely important to make sure that our air is clean and clear, and that, we can find more, sustainable, renewable energies, as people say, and to, give a better chance to the future of, of our children and our children's children. So we definitely got to protect this planet to protect ourselves.